Amy Lynn Bradley was born on May 12, 1974, in Petersburg, Virginia. She would eventually reside in Chesterfield County, Virginia. She attended a local college known as Longwood University. She attended with a scholarship in basketball. She would graduate with a degree in physical education and was known to be a great swimmer, as having previously worked as a lifeguard. Amy was planning to start a new job at a computer consulting firm after she graduated from college. Around March 1998, her family decided to go on this cruise ship. It was the Caribbean cruise ship, Rhapsody of the Seas, that was set to sail towards Puerto Rico. This trip would include her father Ron, her mother Iva, and her brother Brad. And so they were asking Amy if she would love to join them on this cruise ship. And so they were like, "Hey honey, would you care to join us?" Now, despite the fact that she was a strong swimmer and was a trained lifeguard, that was one of her biggest fears, so she did not want to go on this cruise ship at first. But her family did try their best to persuade her, like, "Oh, come on, it'll be fun. We'll hold on to you and you'll be just fine." And so she's like, "Oh, okay, fine, I'll join you guys." And so Amy reluctantly would overcome her fears and she would eventually agree to join her family on this cruise ship. That wasn't until the third night on sea. Amy and her brother Brad were partying hard. They were having fun. They were having a blast. They stayed up practically all night dancing at this nightclub party that they were having on the ship. They were dancing, drinking alcohol, hanging out with the ship's band called the Blue Orchid. And then one of the members, Oster Douglas, who was nicknamed Yellow, was drinking with Amy that night, and he would end up soon leaving the party around 1 a.m. And Amy's brother Brad would end up leaving the party as well. The ship's computerized door lock system recorded that Brad would return to his cabin around 3:35 a.m., where Amy would soon follow him 5 minutes later. They were hanging out on the balcony, and then Brad will soon fall asleep, while Amy will stay awake for a little longer, before she soon will fall asleep. Nearly 2 hours will pass by, around 5:15 to 5:30 a.m., so this is now on March 24th, 1998. Amy's father, Ron, got up out of bed to go and check up on his children. So he got up, went upstairs on the balcony, and he saw that Amy was still sleeping on the lounge chair of their cabin's balcony. So he thought to himself that everything looks fine, so I'm just going to go ahead and fall back to sleep. So he would go back to sleep and he would take a quick snooze before waking back up at 6 a.m. So he wakes back up and heads back up towards the balcony again, and this time he sees that his daughter isn't there. Her cigarettes and her lighter are gone. So at this point, Ron was a bit worried, but he wasn't panicked. He didn't know what else to think at this point because it wasn't like his daughter just to go anywhere inconspicuously without telling her father about it first. So he decides to go check it around the common areas of the ship, and when he couldn't find his daughter anywhere, he woke his family up and he said, "Guys, we have a problem." Amy's family immediately reported the missing case to the onboard crew, where they continued to plead with the crew members to keep the 2,000 passengers from disembarking the cruise and to make an announcement to insist on finding Amy. However, the team at the pursuer's office informed them that it was too early to make a ship-wide announcement. The crew agreed to issue an announcement at 7:50 a.m. after a majority of the passengers had left the ship, announcing, "Will Amy Bradley please come to the pursuer's desk?" Between 12:15 and 1 o'clock p.m., the crew staff searched through the ship but could not find Amy. The delay that the crew put on the search and investigation of the disappearance has been said to have led to lowering the chance of finding Amy by ignoring the family's advice and following the passengers to disembark. The Dutch Caribbean Coast Guard conducted a 4-day search that ended on March 27, 1998, and Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines chartered a boat to continue looking for her. The Coast Guard used 3 helicopters and a radar plane to assist in the search. The authorities suspected that Amy had either fallen overboard or died by suicide. However, this speculation was soon to be discredited as Amy was a strong swimmer, and her body was never found in the waters, as well as no evidence of foul play. On the morning of the disappearance, 2 passengers told Ron that they saw a woman matching Amy's description. They said that they saw a woman matching Amy's description by taking an elevator to the ship's deck with cigarettes and a lighter. However, this did not lead to any findings. Another witness was a cab driver who stated that a woman matching Amy's description approached him and said that she urgently needed a phone. This sighting was also never confirmed by authorities. In August 1998, a Canadian computer engineer claimed to have seen Amy walking down with 2 men on a beach in Curacao 5 months after her disappearance. The witness mentioned that the woman was trying to get his attention until he lost sight of her at a nearby cafe. The woman's tattoos were reportedly identical to Bradley's, and the men said that he was 2 feet away from her. and he was sure it was her with complete certainty. In January of 1999, a U.S. Navy petty officer claimed to have seen a woman at a brothel in Curacao who claimed to be Amy Bradley. He stated that she told him that her name was Amy Bradley and she begged him for help, explaining that she was held against her will and not allowed to leave, and did not report the incident earlier as he feared for his career in the Navy, having been in a brothel. The witness only contacted Amy's family after he retired and saw her picture in a magazine. There was no evidence to support the witness's claim. In the fall of 1999, Amy's parents would have received an email from a self-proclaimed Navy SEAL soldier, Frank Jones. Frank would tell the family that he was a former U.S. Army Special Officer with a team of experienced soldiers who might be able to rescue Amy. Jones had claimed that his team had seen Amy being held by heavily armed Colombian personnel in a housing complex surrounded by a barbed wire, used to sing for her. Over the next few months, Frank would feed news to the family and provided reports on sightings of their daughter. When Jones told them that they were going to attempt a rescue, he basically told them like, hey, listen, we can rescue your daughter, but we're going to need a down payment of just about $210,000. So that way we can attempt to rescue your daughter. And of course, the Bradleys being very desperate, they were just telling him like, hey, yeah, we want to do anything in this search and investigation to get our daughter back. So of course, yeah, we'll send you the money. The Bradleys would send him the money for Amy's search. And over the next couple of weeks, they were expecting Mr. Jones to call them back, but they never got anything back. They were scammed. And it was at this point the authorities would get involved, and Mr. Jones was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And then there was more of these possible sightings that came about in the year 2005, where this woman by the name of Judy Maurer claimed to have seen Bradley in a department store restroom in Barbados, telling everybody that, yeah, I saw this woman going into the restroom with 3 men who then proceeded to threaten her if she did not follow through on this deal that they were having. She approached the distraught woman, who said that her first name was Amy and that she was from Virginia, before the men re-entered and took her away. Maurer called authorities and they created composite sketches of 3 men and the woman based on her account. Bradley's parents would then later appear on the November 2005 episode of Dr. Phil, where they showed an image of a young woman resembling Bradley that was emailed to her parents, and it suggests that she may have been sold into sexual slavery. The woman in the photo has been said to appear distraught and despondent, and was a sex worker known as Jazz. Another incident involved the finding of a jawbone that washed ashore in Aruba in 2010. Initially, it was thought to be the jawbone of another missing persons case, Natalie Holloway. But once the jawbone was cleared of Holloway, authorities ceased any further testing despite the fact that there were 9 other Caribbean vacationers that were said to be missing. No DNA testing was done on the material, and they said that the bone is human and was likely from a Caucasian origin. Amy Lynn Bradley was then declared legally dead on March 21st, 2010, just 12 years after the disappearance, with no witnesses and nobody ever found. There are several theories in regards to the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley, including one that she was kidnapped and sold to the illegal human trafficking industry in the Caribbean. This theory is supported by various sources of evidence, including a key witness from the U.S. Navy, claiming that he heard a worker at a brothel in the Caribbean claiming to be Amy, in a 2005 photo that was emailed to Amy's family. Another piece of evidence would include the inconsistencies of the witnesses on the night of the disappearance. In People magazine, Amy's mother stated that, "I remember watching people watch her admiringly," and later goes on to say that Amy would have been a trophy. This theory also includes the suspicions of the staff band members on the cruise of the night of the disappearance. This theory also includes suspicion of the staff band members on the cruise on the night of the disappearance. One of these suspicions being the inconsistent story that the band member Yellow presented to the authorities as opposed to what CCTV has captured that night. Many people suspected that a waiter was also involved with the disappearance, and throughout the night, Amy's family was approached by the same waiter asking to pass on a note to Amy for him involving an invitation for her to go drinking with him once they reached shore. In addition, another theory authorities considered was that Amy was murdered on the ship and thrown overboard. The final theory includes Amy falling overboard or dying by suicide, as initially suggested by the authorities. To this day, Amy Lynn Bradley has never been discovered. There is a $25,000 reward for anybody that has any information about the discovery of her whereabouts, or at the very least her remains. Her family still misses her dearly every single day, and they are very hopeful that they will find a closure to her whereabouts, and her case unfortunately remains unsolved.